is the new 2021 Toyota Supra. And I've got to say, if you bought a 2020 Supra right when it came out, you're probably going to be a little upset because this car is better than last year's model. And today, I'm going to explain why. Let's start with the basics. After years of promises, the Toyota Supra finally returned for the 2020 model year, heavily based on the new BMW Z4. Last year's Supra offered only one engine, a turbocharged six-cylinder with 335 horsepower. This year, that's been bumped up to 382 horsepower, almost 50 more horses than last year's model. And there are other updates too. For one thing, there's now a new base model Supra with a turbocharged four-cylinder engine that makes 255 horsepower. There's a larger standard infotainment screen, and there's revised chassis tuning for slightly better driving experience and better handling. In short, after just one model year, Toyota has already updated the Supra and made it better, which probably won't sit so well with people who rushed out to buy one last year. But if you've waited to buy the new Supra, you're in luck. And today I'm going to show you around the updated version. First, I'm going to show you a few of the interesting quirks and features, then I'm going to get it out on the road, and then I'll give it a Doug score. Alright, time for the quirks and features of the 2021 Supra. Now this video is on more Doug Demuro, my second channel, because I've already done a thorough review of the new Supra, which I will link in the description below, and you can check that out if you want a really comprehensive tour, inside, outside, everything. In this video, I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights, and that means starting with just how much BMW is in this interior. It is unreal. Now this isn't necessarily a criticism. BMW makes good interiors, but I haven't been in the Supra in a year and I forgot just how much BMW is in this Toyota. Take a look, for instance, at the gear lever. BMW drivers will instantly recognize that as a BMW gear lever. Same deal with the infotainment screen. This is BMW through and through. And same deal with the infotainment controls in the center console. BMW, not a single change here. That's also true of the climate controls in the center, pulled directly out of a BMW. Again, no change at all. These are BMW controls. And right above that, same deal with the presets for the infotainment system, BMW. Although that means you get one of my very favorite technology tricks in the car industry. If you forgot what you set one of your presets to, just slide your fingers over the preset and the infotainment system will give you a preview of what is on that preset. It is a brilliant feature. I absolutely love that, and I wish everybody else did it too. Anyway, the BMW-ness continues elsewhere in this interior as well. Take a look at the steering wheel and you can see this is a BMW wheel, no changes at all. The buttons are the same as every other BMW. The only difference, of course, is that the center pad where the airbag is has a Toyota logo instead of BMW. And same deal with the stalks coming off the wheel. The turn signal stalk you can see right out of a BMW, no changes. Same deal with the wiper stalk. It really is unbelievable to me just how much BMW is in here. You'd think there would be some Toyota, but there's not. With that said, this interior does have one really cool feature that I love, and that would be the gauge cluster, which is just awesome. I love the look of it. I love how it's designed. It's stylish, it's sporty, it looks cool. I love the font they've used, the colors. This has some BMW to it in some spots, but really this gauge cluster is unique to the Supra, and I think it just looks fantastic, and it's totally fitting the character of like a tech-focused Japanese sports car that's cool and new, and I think it's great. With that said, I wish it would change a little bit more. The Lexus LFA and the Lexus IS, their gauge clusters kind of move and swivel around, and it's a really cool look. This thing is fixed in place, and in fact, when you put it in sport mode, you can see not much really changes. It just gets a little redder, a little bit more aggressive, but that's about it. You don't get some of the more comprehensive changes you can get in other modern cars with digital gauge clusters. With that said, one important change you do get in sport mode is to the exhaust note. This car sounds pretty good normally, but when you put it in sport mode, it sounds really good. Take a listen. And since I'm back here, let's talk cargo area. You open up the tailgate and you quickly discover that there's actually a pretty generously sized cargo area in here, and it's kind of open to the front seat, so you can pass through stuff if you have larger, skinny, long items. One unusual thing about the cargo area, though, is how narrow it pinches on the sides. You would think the tailgate would be a little bit wider to allow more cargo to come through, but it really isn't. It's surprisingly tight back here, which will make it a little bit difficult to load some larger items, even though you have the space for it, just because the opening isn't particularly wide. And next up, also outside the Supra, one of the things that has perplexed me about this car since it came out is the sheer amount of fake vents on the outside. This vent is fake, no air passes through it. This vent is fake, same deal, it's plugged up. This vent is fake, no air. This vent is fake, this vent is fake, this vent is fake. There are far more fake vents on the outside of this car than real vents. Now, when I went to the press launch for the Supra a year ago, one of the most bizarre explanations I've ever been given for anything was that Toyota left these fake vents on so that tuning companies could open them up and do their thing. And I was sitting there thinking, why doesn't Toyota just open them up, do their thing, and then charge more for it and make more money? And I still think there's a possibility that they will come out with a more powerful Supra that utilizes these vents later. But for now, there's a lot of fake vents on the outside of this car, and I just never love the look of something that's supposed to be functional, but really is just there for style. And next up, let's talk about another interesting Supra exterior detail, and that would be lighting. For one thing, front lighting. You have these giant LED running lights. That's becoming more common in the car industry, but when you turn on the turn signal, one of them turns off and becomes a giant LED turn signal. This car probably has the largest turn signal size to vehicle size ratio in the car industry right now. The front signals are really huge. Now, in back, you also have a cool piece of lighting, and that would be this little light at the bottom in the center. This is where race cars have their rain light or their fog light, so they can be seen on a racetrack by other drivers during a rainy race. In the Supra, they have it there and it looks cool, but it's the reverse light. You put the car in reverse, the light turns on. It's a neat look, and it's a neat way to incorporate this race car touch and give it some actual function. And finally, we move under the hood and you can see the engine in this Supra. Now, this is the same engine as last year, this turbocharged 3-liter 6-cylinder. Although last year's model, like I said, had 335 horsepower, this one's been bumped up to 382. So an increase of 47 horsepower. That is a pretty substantial figure. That's worth noting. Torque has also increased by 3 pound-feet, which I'm sure you can really feel. To me, though, the biggest news in the Supra this year is not the extra power, but the addition of the base model. Toyota's calling it the Supra 2.0, and this is the 3.0 because of their engine size. The base model is a 255 horsepower, 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, but the cool part is there's now a more affordable Supra. Toyota hasn't yet released pricing, but obviously it's going to be cheaper, and it'll kind of bridge the gap between the Supra and the Toyota 86 and give people a more reasonable entry point to get into Supra ownership, which I'm excited about. Of course, the other thing worth noting under the hood, again, is some BMW stuff under here. The powertrain is a BMW engine, so there's a lot of BMW parts under here, but they've tried to hide a lot of the obvious ones. Still, you don't have to look far to find a BMW logo. This one is right in the middle, staring out at you. You can also see on the emissions label, it says Toyota, but then BMW is printed on it as well, since this is a BMW power plant. At the end of the day, this car's heart and soul is BMW. It just happens to be called the Toyota Supra. But personally, I don't think that's so bad. BMW builds some pretty good cars. So anyway, let's take this thing out on the road and see how it drives with its 50 horsepower boost over last year's model. All right, driving the 2021 Supra. First thing you notice when you get on it, even just a little bit, it sounds really good. I don't remember how the 2020 model sounded, but this is really notable. It's impressive. It sounds great. Now, some of that is probably piped into the interior, I don't know. But either way, it's really, really a nice sports car sound. One thing I really like about this car is that it's really a pretty balanced car. It has a reasonable amount of cargo space. It's comfortable up here. It's sporty and fast if you want it to be, but it can also be pretty tame if you want to just drive it normally. Now, with that said, that's also true of Porsches and frankly of a lot of other sports cars in this world. And one of the things that I don't like about this car remains the fact that it doesn't offer a manual transmission. And I'm not one of those car enthusiasts who's like, manual is better with everything. I prefer automatics in a lot of situations, in fact, but I think in order to offer a true sports car in this segment, you gotta have a manual transmission. At the press launch for this car a year ago, Toyota told all the journalists the Cayman is the car we're targeting, that's where we've set our sights, that's what we wanna get. And it's like, okay, well, you're already playing at a disadvantage because you're not a Porsche and you don't have your engine in the middle, it's in the front. So you have to be, the rest of the car has to be really good to make up for that stuff. But then they don't offer a manual. It's like, okay, well then you're not really targeting the Cayman. Don't say that. You're not being truthful. I mean, if you're really targeting the Cayman and you want to make the best sports car you can, you have a 3-pedal version. The automatic is nice, very smooth, not quite as quick as a dual clutch, but it drives well. And it does a good job moving the car. I mean, the car feels quick. The new engine, the more power, it actually feels quick. And the old one did too, frankly. I didn't think the regular version needed that much more power. I wanted a performance model, but adding 50 more horses to this version, that does a pretty good job. We're now under 4 seconds 0 to 60, and that's great territory to be in. One interesting thing about this car, despite all of the BMW in this interior, everywhere you look is BMW. The one thing you don't have is BMW styling. When I look at the new Supra, I do not see Z4. I like how this car looks. I think the Z4 is more simple, more traditionally beautiful, but I kind of like this car. It looks aggressive, it looks cool, it's head turning, and I think they did a good job styling the new Supra. Overall, the 2021 model, it feels a little faster. You now have 2 versions to choose from. I don't really feel the chassis tweaks, but maybe you would on a racetrack. But I think they've taken a good car and they've made it better. But unfortunately, with no mid-engine, with no manual transmission, with no higher performance version, it's still not the best in class. You can get all that stuff in a Cayman for not that much more money, and you have a Porsche, and it's just, that simply is a better car. But this is still a really good one, and it's a great effort by Toyota and BMW. Good car with a potent powertrain, just not quite the best. And so that's the 2021 Toyota Supra. There's a lot to like here. It's more powerful than before and a bit sharper to drive, and now there's a base model 4-cylinder which makes the Supra more affordable. I still strongly believe there should be an available manual transmission, but either way, the Supra has definitely improved over last year's model, and frankly, I already liked that one. Anyway, now it's time to give the Supra a Doug score. And the Doug score is here. No surprise, the Supra score is exactly the same as last year's model, except with 1 more point for acceleration, since the 0 to 60 time drops below 4 seconds. The Supra performs admirably against some good opponents here, though I'd still rather have some other cars. A Cayman S, a Shelby GT350, a BMW M2 Competition, even if I had to buy one of those a year or 2 old versus a brand new Supra. Still, the Supra is a good car, and for 2021, it's even better.